Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. There's a common complaint in Hollywood by women that once they reach the age of 40, they become less relevant. Their roles dry up. They tend to become invisible. But the same thing applies to most men. Not the CEOs, the billionaires, but most men. We live in a very youth-oriented culture, and so it can be easy to get overlooked. However, there are some real advantages to being mature, even when it comes to visibility, because as you get older, you learn the power of presentation. It's mortifying not to be able to find a photo of myself before the age of 50 without a baseball hat or a sweatshirt on. I thought that I looked casual. What I looked was careless. As they get older, some men learn the power of dressing well, of carrying themselves with dignity, and even smelling good. Smelling good is the exact opposite of carelessness. When you care how you smell before you leave the house, that's an attention to detail that is rare. Wearing a high-quality fragrance that suits your style can make you look more considered, more deliberate, and more put together. I have 10 fragrances that are perfect for mature men. Fragrance number 1 is YSL's M7 Oud Absolu, and this fragrance is on the list for a couple of different reasons. The main one, though, is that there have been many times where I felt that this was the best fragrance in my entire collection. It is dark, it is oudy, a little bit of amber in it. It smells really good, and it's very powerful, too. However, once the weather starts to warm up, I realize it's really not versatile at all, and it does not work in warm weather under any circumstances, so the versatility does hurt it. I also happen to think, though, that something like this, and oud in general, work really well for mature men. Oud tends to lean more masculine, but more importantly, it leans exotic. When you're young, people, they're adventurous, but they also want to fit in as well. When you get older, over 40, you kind of figure out who you are. Are you an oud guy? If you are, you're going to wear this without any hesitation whatsoever. And if you're not an oud guy, you're not going to go near it. So I do think it does skew more mature, and it fits the list perfectly. This fragrance did save oud entirely for YSL because they actually started the whole oud craze with M7 in 2002. The problem is Tom Ford was working there, and he really pushed the envelope when it came to oud. It was completely unknown except for two very obscure niche fragrances, and he did a mass market release of oud with an absolute beast mode, very oud heavy fragrance that had like 12 to 16 hours longevity. And then to top it all off, he created this advertisement that had full frontal male nudity in it. You can see I have covered the offending appendage. I don't want to get demonetized, but basically Tom Ford just pushed the envelope so much that the fragrance ended up bombing very quickly. They didn't have an M7, and then in 2011, and you can see the chart, 2011, there are a lot more oud fragrances. They toned this down. They turned the oud down. They turned the ambery quality up. This has labdanum and myrrh. It also has patchouli, so it's still dark. It's still got oud, but it wasn't an absolute beast mode, way ahead of its time. And so this one's been a pretty consistent seller, but don't overlook this fragrance. It's beautiful, especially on mature guys. Fragrance number 2 is Guerlain's L'Homme Ideal Parfum, and this is the more mature, more masculine of the Guerlain L'Homme Ideal fragrances because the fragrance line is built around sweet almond. Now, the house comes by the sweet almond naturally. There was a fragrance called Jicky that came out in 1889. Jicky didn't have an almond note, but to a lot of people it came across as having a sweet almond feel. Guerlain kind of adopted that as the scent of choice for the house. They use it for the Ideal line, but the earlier fragrances had a sweet quality to them that made them more gourmandy, and so they decided to fix it with this one. And they did so by using amaretto, which is an almond liqueur, but you're adding a little bit of a boozy element, so it's a little bit of a bite, a little bit more of a masculine feel to this. And this also has leather. And it's so funny because if you look at just about any parfum, so many of them will have a leather note because leather is more masculine, it is more mature, and so generally parfums have a lot of leather. This also has musk and patchouli in the base, so it's very dark, very smooth, and it really is the mature solution to what was fundamentally a gourmandy line. Fragrance number 3 is the antidote to the sweet white floral trend that is so pervasive in men's fragrances today. This is Amouage's Goldman. And so things like Myself, which is a sweet orange blossom combo. And I like orange blossom in a lot of ways. There's a creaminess to it. There's a sophistication to it. But when you pair it with sweetness, it really comes off as feminine. This has a ton of white florals. In this case, jasmine and lily of the valley. And you really do get that early on. But as the fragrance dries down, you start to pick up a lot of masculine notes that surround it and turn this into a masculine white floral. Things like civet, you have oak moss, that brings this in a definite masculine direction. There's also a little bit of musk too. It's an absolutely gorgeous, what I call a CEO fragrance, which is a real weight to it. Another bonus here is this is a woody floral musk. It's a very rare designation, but when it comes to performance, it's absolutely fantastic. That's one of the things that people really like about Dior Homme Intense. Dior Homme Intense has a projection of a couple of feet, but it's one of those fragrances when you put it on, you'll notice this on yourself for like 3, 4, 5 hours. You know it's there, and if people are close in your personal bubble, they'll pick it up, but it doesn't project too far. Another fragrance, this is my signature scent, Lorenzo Villarese's musk. This is also a woody floral musk. When it comes to performance, it's the ultimate fragrance for mature men. And yeah, Goldman has that too. Fragrance number 4 is YSL's La Nuit de L'Homme Bleu Electrique. Or if you prefer, if you have the original La Nuit de L'Homme, that works as well. Or if you have a clone of La Nuit de L'Homme, I have Farid from Riffs, because this is essentially about the La Nuit de L'Homme DNA. Regardless of what you have, it is absolutely fantastic for people that are mature, for older people. It was the number 2 DNA of the 2010s, super popular. It is not very sweet. It focuses mainly on cardamom. It's got a spicy feel to it. There's also lavender and cedar, so it's got a woody element, but the performance is perfect. It's subtle, spicy, it's seductive. It is definitely on the mature side in terms of who it appeals to, but it just doesn't have that crazy heavy sweetness, but it's still seductive at the same time. So I think that's perfect. The problem with Bleu Electrique is it's been discontinued, so it's very difficult to find. The original La Nuit de L'Homme, a lot of people complain about performance. I don't. I had a bottle, and the only reason I got rid of it was I had 2. I had no issues with it. It's meant to be a subtle scent. But if you really want to push the envelope, the best way, I think, price-wise, is to get a really good clone. And this is an exceptional clone. Yes, I understand Riff sponsor a lot of my videos. They're not sponsoring this one. They have no idea I'm even talking about it. I have about 20 fragrances from Riffs. This is easily their best. The great thing about it is, when it comes to that DNA, you don't notice the fact that the clone is synthetic. This is actually sold out in Canada at the moment, although it should be available soon. So yeah, if you have a clone, it doesn't have to be this one, but any kind of La Nuit de L'Homme DNA works really well for mature men. Fragrance number 5 is Oud Minerale by Tom Ford, and this is a love it or hate it fragrance, but that really boils down to your perception of the fragrance going in. Because even though this has sea notes and seagrass, if you go into this fragrance thinking it's going to be an aquatic, you're not going to have a good time. Yes, it has those notes, but it also has a significant amount of oud, or at least enough oud to move it in a different direction. So don't think of it as a typical aquatic, as a day at the beach, sun and surf. This is more low tide, early in the morning, a little bit of sea vegetation. So a very, very different aquatic experience. It's still an aquatic. There's a lot of mineral notes here, but yeah, it also has oud. It has a dark quality as well. And so that's really important as to how you interpret it. This originally was a private line fragrance that came out in 2017. It was only in 2023 did this become a signature line fragrance. And I think as a private line fragrance, it worked better because normally private line is essentially niche, so super creative. So you go to buy it, you're thinking something odd, something quirky, something different. And that's really what it is. But now that it's a signature line and people see the C notes, they think an aquatic. Well, it's a different kind of aquatic. It's a great fragrance, though, if you understand it. Fragrance number 6 is M. Micallef Gin and Tonic. And the M for M. Micallef is Martine. She's an artist. She's also a perfumer. She's based out of Grasse. They've made 192 fragrances. They've been around for over 20 years. They are a niche house, and this is their pièce de résistance of 192 fragrances. This is maybe the best use of booze in a fragrance that I've ever tried. So obviously the name gin and tonic, there's going to be a gin and tonic note, but it's the subtlety of the fragrance that is so good, because it literally smells like you're sticking your nose over a gin and tonic. You pick up the peppermint, the ginger, the lime, and it's just got a nice cooling feel. It's the subtlety of it that makes it so beautiful. Now, the one drawback is the price, because it is a legitimate niche fragrance and it is a popular one. Even at the discounters, you're going to pay $175 for it. However, a fragrance like this that is so well done, it is niche and it feels like niche. That is one of the few times where, yeah, you might want to, as long as you try it ahead of time, you might want to invest, because it is a fascinating experience. Fragrance number 7 is YSL's L'Homme. This has been criticized for performance. However, the scent itself is fantastic. Performance issues, I mean, some people get 3 hours, some get 4. I think if you wear it in warmer weather, you're probably going to get closer to 4 hours. Projection is moderate, but if you're mature, that's really what we want. But how good is the scent? I do not like ginger as a note. I did have L'Homme Ultime, which is part of this line. It's the ultimate ginger, a lot of ginger. That's long gone. So is Azzaro's Ginger Lover, long gone. I am not a big ginger fan, and yet this is one of my favorite fragrances. I traded a really expensive fragrance for this, and I really love it, even though it's mostly ginger. It's what's surrounding the ginger here that makes it so good. You're going to get spices, a little bit of citrus with some bergamot and some tonka, all done very subtly surrounding the ginger, giving it a super nice feel. Yeah, it's 2006, but it's still got a modern vibe to it, minus the vanilla. Fragrance number 8 is Acqua de Parma Colonia Mirra. And obviously this is part of the darker fragrances. Colonia is normally thought of as being a fresh fragrance line, but they do have a number of darker fragrances in the darker bottles. This is the most formal Acqua de Parma I've ever tried. That is a house I'm very familiar with. I've tried about 15 of their fragrances, and this one is quite formal. The core of this fragrance is patchouli, myrrh, and amber. So essentially dark, resinous, and yeah, it really does come off as quite formal. There are a couple of fragrances out there that you might be familiar with. Tom Ford's Noir, but also this is Prada's Amber Pour Homme Intense. And all three have that at its core. Now, this one has some more freshness to it that has a lot of saffron and citrus here. This has a citrus note, but it's not very noticeable, so it comes off as denser, muskier than this, but definitely in the same ballpark and the same kind of vibe. That is a very formal vibe, definitely leans more on the mature side. Fragrance number 9 is for those of you that really like the sweet vanillic trend and still want to be mature. This is Jean Paul Gaultier's Scandal Le Parfum. And I picked the Parfum in particular because it's always going to be the most conservative in terms of sweetness. So yeah, there is a fair amount of tonka here, but it's been pulled back with geranium and sandalwood. But that geranium note is quite fresh and it pulls it back a little bit. It's still quite similar to the original Scandal, but it's a little bit denser as well. So the projection is not going to be as much, but I think this would be a good choice or a decent choice if you're more mature, but you still like the modern trends of the heavy sweetness, Scandal Le Parfum. And finally, we have Hugo Boss Cotton Verbena. Now, this is a private line Hugo Boss fragrance. Those are not often talked about a lot, but this is one that I had an opportunity to try. I borrowed it from somebody and I liked it so much I thought I'd put it in a video. It is so different. So basically 3 notes. You're going to get lemon verbena, and that is what you get more than anything, but there's also oak moss and vetiver, and it's an earthy vetiver. It's a really difficult one to describe. It's an odd scent. Think lemon verbena first, and then I guess it does have a cottony feel, but also earthy as well. It's just super strange. Solid performance, lovely scent if you're like me and you like to be a little adventurous. Definitely with all the oak moss, it does skew more mature. Now this has been discontinued. I did find a discounter in Canada that had it available. It was not too crazy in terms of price, so this is gettable if you look hard enough, but quirky fragrance and a fun one for, older guys like us. So yeah, I mean, presentation really does matter. I think you can really improve your visibility. I know mine has improved immensely. I've mentioned this many times, but yeah, as I've gotten older, my presentation's gotten better. I mean, different type of people looking at me than when I was younger. But yeah, you know, it's still possible. If you dress well, if you carry yourself well, I mean, confidence is always important, but yeah, so is your appearance. It can help. Anyway, thanks for watching.